They say karma has no deadline. But in New York City on December 18th, 2024, it arrived in exactly 10 minutes and 47 seconds. The ballroom at the St. Regis was frozen. Terror hung in the air like expensive perfume. 6 men in dark suits formed a perimeter, hands hovering near their waistbands, eyes scanning for threats that would never come. The temperature had dropped 10 degrees in the span of a heartbeat. And in the center of it all, a waitress knelt on champagne-soaked marble, her cheap uniform ruined, blood from broken glass seeping through her stockings. She held an old woman in her arms while New York's elite stood frozen, phones still recording, laughter dying in their throats. The woman on the floor was not homeless. She was not lost. She was Isabella Romano, matriarch of the most feared crime family in New York. The woman who had buried 2 husbands and outlived 5 FBI directors. The woman who ruled the underworld with a rosary in one hand and a ledger in the other. And the waitress? She had just made the most dangerous decision of her life. But let's rewind. 10 minutes and 47 seconds earlier. Back to when Emma Sullivan was just another invisible girl in a borrowed uniform, counting down the hours until her shift ended and she could afford another day of her sister's dialysis treatments. Back to when she had no idea that the next 10 minutes would change everything. This is the story of how a single act of kindness brought an empire to its knees, how a waitress became a queen, and how the most dangerous man in New York fell in love with the only person who saw him as human. What you're about to hear sounds impossible, but every word is true. Like this video now. Subscribe, because the algorithm is cruel and we might never find each other again. Now, let's go back. To 4:30 in the morning, to a cramped apartment in Queens, to the moment Emma Sullivan's day began. The alarm screamed at 4:30 a.m. Emma's hand shot out, silencing it before the sound could wake Grace. In the darkness of their studio apartment, the only light came from the dialysis machine. It hummed its mechanical lullaby, keeping her sister alive 1 hour at a time. Emma sat up slowly. Her back ached. The pull-out couch had a spring that dug into her spine no matter how she positioned herself. She'd gotten used to it. You get used to anything when you have no choice. She reached for her father's watch on the milk crate they used as a nightstand. Silver Timex, stopped at 11:47 p.m. The exact moment Michael Sullivan's heart had stopped beating 7 years ago. Emma wound it carefully, listening to the familiar tick. She never reset the time. Some clocks aren't meant to be fixed, only remembered. Grace stirred on the actual bed. She was 19 but looked 60. Gray skin, sunken eyes. The dialysis machine beeped softly, filtering toxins her failing kidneys couldn't handle. 7 years ago, Emma had been 16, a girl who worried about algebra tests and whether Tommy McAllister would ask her to prom. Then the police knocked on their door at midnight. Construction accident, they said. Steel beam, instantaneous. They were very sorry for her loss. Her father had been 40 years old, healthy, careful, and suddenly, impossibly dead. Emma didn't believe it was an accident, but she was 16 and nobody listens to teenage girls with conspiracy theories. So she'd buried her father, dropped out of high school, and started working 3 jobs to keep Grace alive. That was 7 years ago, December 18th, 2017. Today was December 18th, 2024. 7 years to the day. Emma checked the dialysis readings, all normal. She administered Grace's morning medications, counted out pills with practiced precision. They had 5 days of medicine left. The refill cost $800. Rent was due in 5 days. $1,200. She had $247 in her checking account. Tonight's catering shift would pay $180. 4 hours of work. Serving champagne to people who spent more on a single glass than Emma made in a week. She'd figure out the rest tomorrow. She always did. Emma showered in 4 minutes, the water barely warm. She pulled on her catering uniform, polyester and 2 sizes too big. It scratched at her neck. She tied her auburn hair back, hiding the natural curl her father used to call her crown. Before leaving, she bent over Grace's sleeping form and kissed her forehead. Her sister stirred, reached out blindly. Em? Shh, sleep. I'll be back by midnight. Be careful. Always Em. She tucked her father's watch into her pocket. For luck, for memory, for the faith that somehow, someday, things would get better. They had to. The subway at 5 a.m. was a different world. Fluorescent lights flickered over nodding addicts and exhausted workers heading to jobs that paid too little for too much. The smell of urine mixed with cheap cologne. Someone had vomited in the corner. Nobody cleaned it. Emma stood by the door, watching her reflection in the grimy window. Green eyes, pale skin, freckles across her nose, her father's Irish coloring, her mother's cheekbones. Her mother had died when Emma was 8, ovarian cancer, fast and brutal. Her father had raised 2 daughters alone, working overtime as an accountant to give them everything they needed. Everything except himself, apparently. He'd worked himself to death, or so everyone said. But Emma remembered. The strange phone calls in Italian. Her father practicing phrases in a language she'd thought was beautiful but never understood. He'd taught her some basic conversational Italian. She'd asked why an accountant needed to speak Italian. He'd smiled that sad smile he wore in his last months. In this city, sweetheart, knowing the old languages opens doors. Trust me on this. She trusted him. She still did. Even 7 years dead, Michael Sullivan was the best man she had ever known. The subway lurched. Emma steadied herself. Outside the window, Queens gave way to Manhattan. Graffiti gave way to glass. Poverty gave way to prosperity. She emerged at Grand Central into a different universe. Morning joggers and designer athleisure. Businessmen in suits that cost more than Emma's rent. The smell of fresh bagels and artisanal coffee. And there, rising like a temple to wealth, the St. Regis Hotel. Marble columns, gold trim, doormen in top hats and tails. Emma walked past without making eye contact. She knew better. Invisible. That was the first rule of service work. You don't exist to these people. You're furniture. A ghost who refills their glasses and clears their plates and vanishes the moment they look your way. She found the service entrance in the alley, took the freight elevator down to the basement where the catering staff assembled like an army preparing for war. Henderson was already there, sweating through his cheap suit, clipboard clutched like a shield. He was 50, balding and terrified of everything, especially of disappointing the clients who kept him employed. Listen up, his voice cracked. Tonight is the big one, Romano Foundation Annual Winter Solstice Charity Ball. Do you know who that is? The Romanos? Silence. A few nervous glances. It means security is tighter than the Met Gala. It means you follow every rule. You are furniture. You are ghosts. You do not interact. You do not speak unless spoken to. You refill champagne, you clear plates. You do not exist. Am I clear? Murmured agreement. Emma found her station. Carmen was already there, a Latina woman in her mid-30s with tired eyes and a warm smile. Single mother of 2, working double shifts to keep food on the table. Ready for another night in paradise? Carmen asked. Emma managed a smile. Always. A young guy appeared next to them. Derek, 19, community college student, working his way through school as a busboy. He had nervous energy that reminded Emma of a rabbit sensing wolves. You guys see the security? Derek whispered. Earpieces, bulges under their jackets. This isn't normal charity ball security. Who's coming? Emma asked. Derek made a throat-cutting gesture. Romano family, you know, He didn't need to finish. Everyone in New York knew about the Romanos, or knew enough to be terrified. Carmen crossed herself. Dios mío. Why would Mafia come to a charity ball? Money laundering? Derek suggested. Anonymous donations that are actually... Stop. Emma's voice was sharp. Don't speculate. Don't gossip. Just work. But her hands were shaking as she loaded champagne flutes onto her tray. Romano. That name stirred something in her memory. Her father had mentioned it once, twice, maybe more. She'd assumed it was a client, an Italian businessman who needed accounting services. Her father had lots of clients, but the way he'd said the name, with respect, with something that might have been fear. Emma shook off the thought. It didn't matter. She was here to work, earn her money, go home to Grace. That was all that mattered. At 7:30 p.m., the ballroom doors opened. It was like stepping into another world. Crystal chandeliers threw prismatic light across walls draped in silk. Ice sculptures towered 12 feet high. The air smelled like vanilla orchids and old money. The guests arrived in waves. Women in gowns that cost more than Emma made in a year. Men in tuxedos tailored to perfection. They moved through the space like sharks, circling, assessing, calculating net worth and social standing with every glance. Emma moved between them like smoke. Invisible. She'd perfected the art of being nobody. Keep your eyes down. Keep your smile neutral. Anticipate needs before they're voiced. She was refilling glasses when she first saw Victoria Ashford, 26 years old, influencer. 2.4 million followers on Instagram. She wore a Tom Ford gown that probably cost $12,000. Van Cleef necklace worth maybe $80,000. She held court near the ice sculpture, surrounded by an entourage of identical-looking women with terrified eyes and perfect smiles. Victoria snapped her fingers at Emma without looking. More Pinot Grigio. Of course, ma'am. Emma poured with a steady hand despite the exhaustion trembling in her legs. Victoria still didn't look at her, just thrust her empty glass backward like Emma was a trained dog expected to catch it. Get me champagne instead, not you, the Asian one. They're more obedient. Emma's jaw clenched. She said nothing, just moved away, got champagne, found another server to deliver it. She'd learned long ago that responding to casual cruelty only made things worse. She was passing the main entrance when the doors opened again. An old woman stepped through. Late 60s, maybe early 70s. She wore a heavy black vintage coat, a silk scarf wrapped around her head, and gripped a simple wooden cane. She looked like someone's grandmother who'd wandered in from the cold, searching for the church down the street. The room didn't go silent immediately. It started with ripples, confusion, whispers. Who is that? Did security let the cleaning lady in through the front door? Oh my God, look at her shoes. Are those orthopedics? The old woman took a few shaky steps onto the polished marble. She seemed disoriented, dark eyes scanning the crowd like she was searching for someone, looking for a familiar face in a sea of hostile strangers. Emma watched from her position near the wall. There was something about the woman that pulled at her, something familiar. The set of her shoulders, the way she held her head high despite the stares. The old woman passed close to Victoria Ashford's circle. Victoria was mid-laugh, performing for her audience. And then, quick as a snake strike, Victoria extended her leg. It happened in slow motion. The cane hit Victoria's silk dress, lost traction, slipped. The old woman gasped, a dry, brittle sound, and crumbled. She hit the marble floor hard. Her hip made contact with a sickening crack. Her purse flew open, contents scattering. Rosary beads, hard candies, and a photograph, old and faded, of a young man in military uniform from what looked like the 1940s. For 3 seconds, there was perfect silence. Then Victoria Street, Claire laughed. It was a cruel, high-pitched sound, like breaking glass, like nails on a chalkboard, like everything Emma had learned to hate about the world in 7 years of service work. Oops, Victoria covered her mouth with a manicured hand. Her eyes sparkled with malice. Clean up on aisle 5. I think the homeless shelter is down the block, sweetie. The laughter was contagious. It spread through the circle like disease. Men chuckled into their drinks. Women smirked behind their champagne flutes. Phones came out. Instagram stories were recorded. This was content, entertainment, a homeless woman falling at a charity ball. The irony was just too delicious. Not a single person moved to help. They just stood there, in their $5,000 clutches, in their designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, watching an old woman struggle to push herself up with arthritic hands, watching her face contort with pain and humiliation. Henderson was rushing over, but not to help. He was speaking into his headset, face red with panic. Security, get this vagrant out of here. She's ruining the aesthetic. And that's when Emma dropped her tray. She didn't think about it, didn't calculate the cost of lost wages or potential firing, didn't consider rent or Grace's medicine, or the fact that she needed this job more than she needed oxygen. She just saw her father, saw Michael Sullivan, who'd taught her that you judge a person's character by how they treat those who can't help them in return, who'd said again and again until it was burned into her soul, always help those who can't help themselves, Emma, no matter the cost. The tray hit the marble, 30 crystal flutes shattered like a gunshot. Champagne sprayed in a glittering arc, soaking the hems of nearby gowns. You idiot, Henderson screamed, his voice cracked with rage and fear. You're fired! Emma didn't hear the rest. She was already running, dropping to her knees in the puddle of champagne and broken glass. She felt shards bite into her skin through her cheap stockings. Didn't care. She reached the old woman and immediately, instinctively began speaking in Italian, the language her father had drilled into her for reasons she'd never understood. Signora sta bene? Non si muova troppo velocemente. Ma'am, are you okay? Don't move too fast. The old woman's eyes snapped open. They were black as obsidian, sharp, intelligent, and filled with shock. She stared at Emma's face like she was seeing a ghost. Her gaze traveled to Emma's name tag. Sullivan, back to her face. The green eyes, the auburn hair, the shape of her jaw. Sei tu, the old woman whispered. La figlia di Michael. It's you, Michael's daughter. Emma's blood turned to ice. What? How do you know my father? But before the old woman could answer, Henderson arrived. He grabbed Emma's shoulder, yanking her backward with enough force to nearly dislocate it. Get away from her. You're fired, Jenkins. Get your things and get out. Security. Emma shrugged off his hand. Her voice came out low and dangerous. She's hurt. What is wrong with you people? She's a trespasser, Henderson spat. And you are unemployed. Security. Two burly guards in blazers stepped forward, reaching for the old woman like she was garbage to be removed. Don't touch her. Emma's voice cut through the ballroom like a whip. She positioned herself between the guards and the old woman, her body a shield. She was 5'6" and 130 pounds. The guards were both over 6 feet and built like linebackers. It didn't matter. She wasn't moving. The old woman reached up, gripped Emma's wrist with surprising strength. Bambina, it's okay. It's not okay. Emma's voice shook. They can't treat you like this. Victoria's voice dripped with mock sympathy. Oh, look, everyone, the trash is protecting the garbage. This is going viral. Hashtag charity case. More laughter, more phones, the coliseum of cruelty reaching its peak. And then the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The heavy double doors at the main entrance didn't just open. They were kicked inward with violence that shook the chandeliers. The sound echoed like thunder, like judgment. The laughter died instantly, choked off mid-breath. 6 men walked in. They moved with military precision, wearing suits that cost more than most cars. They didn't look like security. They looked like predators, apex predators who'd wandered into a pen of sheep. They formed a perimeter instantly, hands hovering near waistbands, eyes scanning the room with cold efficiency. But it was the 7th man who sucked the air from the ballroom. He was tall, over 6'3", broad shoulders that strained against a charcoal 3-piece suit that probably cost $8,000. Dark hair slicked back, face carved from marble, and a scar running through his left eyebrow, a mark of violence that made him look even more dangerous. He walked into the room and the crowd parted. Not metaphorically, literally parted. People stumbled backward, clutching their chests, faces draining of color. Someone whispered his name. That's Dante Romano. The name hit the room like a bomb. The Reaper. Oh my God, why is he here? Emma, still kneeling on the floor with the old woman in her arms, looked up, saw the expensive Italian leather shoes stop inches from her knees. Slowly, terrified, she raised her gaze. The man looked down at her. His eyes were the same obsidian black as the old woman's, but where hers held pain, his held violence. Raw and barely contained. A fury so intense it made Emma's breath hitch, and then the monster fell to his knees. He ignored the champagne soaking his suit trousers, ignored the glass, ignored Emma completely. He reached out with shaking hands and touched the old woman's face with a tenderness that seemed impossible from someone who radiated such controlled violence. Mama. His voice was a low rumble that carried across the silent ballroom. Mama, are you hurt? A collective gasp went through the room. Victoria's phone slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble. The homeless vagrant wasn't a vagrant. She was Isabella Romano, the matriarch. The woman who'd ruled New York's underworld for 40 years. The woman who was mother to the Reaper himself. Isabella looked at her son, then she looked at Emma. She patted Emma's hand gently. I am hurt, Lorenzo. I fell, but this angel helped me when the others laughed. Dante Romano slowly turned his head. He didn't stand, just turned his neck, scanning the crowd with those dark, terrifying eyes. His gaze landed on Henderson, who was trembling so hard his knees knocked together. Then his eyes slid to Victoria Street Claire. They laughed? His voice was soft, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying than if he'd screamed. They laughed, Isabella confirmed. And this man fired her for helping me. Dante stood slowly. He towered over Emma, extended a hand down toward her. Stand up. It wasn't unkind, but it was absolute authority. The voice of a man used to being obeyed without question. Emma took his hand. It was warm, calloused, strong. He pulled her to her feet effortlessly. What is your name? He asked. Emma Sullivan. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, shock, quickly buried beneath his mask of control. Sullivan? Yes. He studied her for a long moment. The green eyes, the auburn hair, the proud set of her jaw despite her ruined uniform and bleeding knees. Then he turned to his men. Lock the doors. The heavy thud of the locks engaging echoed through the ballroom like a death knell. Nobody leaves, Dante said calmly, until I find out who tripped my mother. The Winter Solstice charity ball had just become a hostage situation. Dante Romano stood in the center of the ballroom with one hand resting protectively on his mother's shoulder As she sat in a velvet chair, one of his men had rushed over. The six armed guards had positioned themselves at every exit. The guests huddled together like frightened cattle. The band had stopped playing mid-note. The waiters were pressed against the walls, trying to blend into the wallpaper. Dante's voice cut through the silence like a blade. My mother came here tonight to make an anonymous donation to the Children's Hospital Fund. She likes to see where her money goes. She walked in the front door like any other guest, and you treated her like a stray dog. He walked slowly toward Victoria Street, Claire. His footsteps echoed, each step measured, deliberate. Victoria was pale. Mascara ran down her cheeks in black rivers. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the primal terror of prey cornered by a wolf. I didn't know, Victoria stammered. Mr. Romano, please. It was a misunderstanding. She looked. Poor, Dante interrupted flatly. He stopped inches from her face. She looked poor. And that made it funny to you? No, I didn't mean. I saw the video. Dante nodded toward one of his men who was holding Victoria's phone. You were live streaming. Clean up on aisle 5, correct? Victoria couldn't breathe. She nodded. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her spray tan. You have 5 seconds to apologize to my mother. Dante's voice remained calm. And if I don't believe you mean it, you will leave this party through the window. We're on the 42nd floor. Victoria threw herself at Isabella's feet. It was pathetic, desperate. She clutched at Isabella's dress, sobbing. Mrs. Romano, I'm so sorry. I'm so stupid. Please forgive me. I'll donate everything. I'll do anything. Isabella looked at the crying girl with eyes of steel. She didn't say a word. Just slowly, deliberately, looked away. A rejection more devastating than any curse. Dante turned to Henderson. The manager was sweating so profusely his collar was soaked. And you fired the only person with a soul in this room. Company policy, sir. Henderson's voice came out as a squeak. She dropped a tray. I can hire her back. With a raise. A big raise, and she won't be working for you anymore. Dante turned back to Emma. The menacing aura vanished, replaced by something strange. Curiosity, interest. Something Emma couldn't quite name. My mother says you shielded her, that you stood between her and my men when you thought they might hurt her. I thought they were security, Emma said. Her voice shook despite her best efforts. I didn't know they were yours. You risked your job, your safety, for a stranger. Dante looked at her, really looked, at her dirty uniform, her cheap shoes, her messy hair, and then at her eyes, green and wide and honest. I have a debt to your father, Dante said quietly. And now to you. Emma's heart stopped. You knew my father? I did. Michael Sullivan was a good man. Before Emma could process that impossible statement, Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Black metal with gold embossing. Just a phone number. No name. My driver is outside. He will take you anywhere you want to go. Do not take the subway tonight. I can't, Emma said automatically. I have to finish my shift or I don't get paid. I need the money. My sister needs medicine. Dante stared at her. Something like disbelief crossed his face. You're worried about $180 when you're standing in front of me? Yes, Emma lifted her chin. Grace needs her medication. We have 5 days left. Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Respect, maybe, or surprise. He snapped his fingers. One of his guards walked over with a briefcase, opened it. Stacks of cash. $100 bills bound in thick bundles. Dante pulled out one bundle, at least $10,000. Held it out. Take it. Emma looked at the money. Then she looked at Dante Romano, and she stepped back. No. The room gasped again. You didn't say no to Dante Romano. Nobody said no to the Reaper. Excuse me? His brows knitted together. I didn't help her for money. Emma's voice was quiet but firm. I helped because it was right. If I take your money, it makes it a transaction. It cheapens it. Silence. Complete and total silence. Dante Romano stood frozen, arms still extended, bundle of cash in his hand. He'd bought judges, politicians, CEOs, arms dealers. He'd never met anyone who refused his money. Isabella let out a soft laugh from her chair. She spoke in Italian. E orgogliosa Dante, come tuo padre. She's proud, like your father. Dante slowly lowered the money. His face was unreadable, but the corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. Very well. He turned to his men. Escort Miss Sullivan home. Ensure she is safe. If anyone, he glared at the room, at Henderson, at Victoria. Anyone bothers her, they answer to me. He turned back to Emma one last time. This isn't over, Emma Sullivan. We will talk again. Two men who looked like they chewed concrete for breakfast appeared at Emma's sides, not touching her, not threatening, just there, a wall of protection. As they escorted her toward the exit, Emma heard Dante's voice addressing the room again. Cold, calm, lethal. Now, let's discuss the damages to my mother's dignity. Who wants to go first? The Bentley was the nicest car Emma had ever been in. Heated leather seats that felt like butter. Tinted windows, the smell of new car and expensive cologne. The city lights blurred past as they drove through Manhattan toward Queens. The driver was a man named Marco, maybe 50, Italian accent. He'd been polite, respectful, opened her door, waited until she was settled before closing it gently. Now, as they crossed the bridge into Queens, he caught her eye in the rearview mirror. Mr. Romano insists you take this card, Miss Sullivan. He said if she refuses the money, tell her the favor remains. He held up the black metal card. This time, Emma took it, slipped it into her pocket next to her father's watch. The contrast between Manhattan and Queens had never been starker. Glass towers gave way to graffiti, clean sidewalks gave way to trash. The Bentley looked obscene pulling up to her building. Marco got out, opened her door. Be careful, Miss Sullivan. You're under Mr. Romano's protection now. That makes you both very safe and very dangerous. Emma climbed the 4 flights of stairs on shaking legs. Her knees screamed where the glass had cut through her stockings. Her uniform was ruined. She'd lost her job. She had no money coming in. But she had a black metal card in her pocket and the knowledge that Dante Romano had known her father. She unlocked apartment 4B. The smell of antiseptic hit her immediately. Grace was asleep on the couch, pale and still, hooked to the dialysis machine. It hummed its lullaby, keeping her alive, 1 hour at a time. Emma sat on the floor beside the couch and wept, silent, shaking sobs. She'd lost everything tonight, her job, her income, any chance of making rent or affording Grace's medication. She'd stood up to the elite. She'd helped a stranger. She'd done the right thing, and she had nothing to show for it but a business card and a terrifying memory. Or so she thought. Emma must have fallen asleep on the floor because the pounding on the door jerked her awake. Gray winter light filtered through the dirty windows. Morning, she checked her father's watch. 6:30 a.m., she panicked. Landlord? Henderson with police? Some kind of retaliation? She opened the door, clutching her bathrobe tight. A man stood in the hallway, 50s, expensive suit, leather portfolio. Behind him, 2 professional movers in matching uniforms. Miss Emma Sullivan? Yes. My name is Richard Castellano. I represent Mrs. Isabella Romano. Emma's mouth went dry. I don't understand. May I come in? She stepped aside. Richard entered, his eyes sweeping over the cramped studio with professional assessment, taking in the dialysis machine, the medications, the poverty. Mrs. Romano was quite taken with you last night. She did some research. She knows about Grace, about your debts, about your father. She has no right. She has every right, Richard interrupted gently, because as of 6 o'clock this morning, the Romano Foundation purchased this building. Emma's knees went weak. The building? This apartment building, the one next to it, and the hospital where Grace receives her primary care. He handed her a thick envelope. Mrs. Romano would like to offer you a position. Emma opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a contract. She read the first page. Position, personal assistant to Mrs. Isabella Romano. Salary, $10,000 per month. Benefits, full medical coverage for immediate family. This can't be real, Emma whispered. It's quite real. There is one condition. What? Richard's face grew serious. You must live at the Romano estate for your safety, because now that the world knows you're under Dante Romano's protection, Miss Sullivan, you have a target on your back. Emma looked at Grace, still sleeping, gray and frail. One wrong infection away from death. Then she looked at the contract, at the number, $10,000 a month, full medical, a way out, a way to save her sister, a way to finally breathe. When do we leave? Emma asked. Richard smiled. My men will help you pack. We leave in 2 hours. As Emma began throwing their meager belongings into boxes, as the movers efficiently dismantled their tiny life, as Grace woke confused and frightened, Emma pulled out the black metal card in her father's stopwatch. She didn't know it yet, but her father had died protecting the Romanos, had taken a bullet meant for Isabella 7 years ago, had made Isabella promise with his dying breath to protect his daughters. For 7 years, Dante Romano had searched for Michael Sullivan's daughters, hired private investigators, came up empty. The girls had disappeared into the foster system, into poverty, into the cracks of the city. And then Emma had walked into his life on her own. The debt was due, and debts to the Romanos were paid in blood, loyalty, or love. Sometimes all three. As the Bentley carried Emma and Grace out of Queens toward the Hamptons, toward the Romano estate, toward a life she couldn't begin to imagine, Emma held her sister's hand and watched the city disappear behind them. She thought she'd made a choice last night, thought she'd chosen kindness over self-interest. But the choice had been made 7 years ago, when her father had thrown himself in front of a bullet, when he'd whispered a dying request, when he'd set in motion a chain of events that would lead his daughter into the arms of the most dangerous man in New York. The waitress was about to become a queen. She just didn't know it yet. And Dante Romano, the Reaper, the man who'd survived 17 years as head of the deadliest crime family in the city, was about to break every rule he'd ever made. For a girl with green eyes and her father's stubborn pride. For Emma Sullivan, the girl who said no. If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. Emma Sullivan helped a fallen woman at a charity gala. That woman was Isabella Romano, matriarch of New York's most feared crime family. Her son Dante, called the Reaper, is the head of the Romano organization. Emma's father Michael died 7 years ago in what was ruled a construction accident. It wasn't an accident. He took a bullet meant for Isabella. Dante promised to protect Michael's daughters. Last we saw, Emma had accepted a job living at the Romano estate. Now she's about to enter a world where loyalty is currency and love is the most dangerous weapon of all. What Emma doesn't know is that the person who killed her father is already inside the Romano family, and they're about to make their move. The drive to the Hamptons took 90 minutes. Emma watched Queens disappear in the rearview mirror, watched the buildings shrink and the space between them grow, watched poverty give way to prosperity and then to something beyond prosperity, to wealth so vast it didn't need to advertise itself. Grace sat beside her, portable oxygen tank in her lap, eyes wide. She kept looking at Emma like she was waiting for the punchline, for someone to admit this was all a terrible joke. Grace whispered, "Are we being kidnapped?" "We're being hired," Emma said, though she wasn't entirely sure herself. "Just remember, we stick together." Well, the Bentley turned off the main road onto a private drive. Trees lined both sides, bare branches reaching toward gray December sky. And then, through the trees, Emma saw it. Iron gates, 12 feet tall, topped with spikes. A large letter R worked into the metalwork. The gates opened silently, smoothly, like the jaws of some great beast welcoming them in. Armed guards stood at attention, German shepherds on leashes, breath steaming in the cold air. Security cameras on every tree. This wasn't a home. This was a fortress disguised as a palace. The mansion rose before them. Limestone, 3 stories, wings stretching left and right like arms, manicured lawns that seemed to go on forever. In the distance, Emma could see what looked like a greenhouse, a tennis court, something that might have been stables. Grace gripped Emma's hand. "This is real." "Yeah," Emma breathed. "This is real." The car stopped at the base of wide stone steps. Marco opened the door. The cold air hit Emma like a slap. It smelled different here, cleaner, like money could even purify the air you breathed. And there, at the top of the stairs, waiting like a king surveying his domain, stood Dante Romano. He'd changed out of his tuxedo. Now he wore a black button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and dark jeans. But he looked no less dangerous. If anything, the casual clothes made him more intimidating. They revealed the tattoos that wrapped around his forearms. Intricate dark ink, thorns and religious iconography, Latin text that Emma couldn't quite read from this distance. He didn't look at Emma. His dark eyes went straight to Grace. He walked down the stairs with measured steps, stopped in front of Grace's wheelchair, crouched down so they were eye level. "You must be Grace." His voice was softer than Emma had heard it, almost gentle. "My mother prepared the East Wing for you, hospital-grade air filtration. Dedicated power generator for your equipment. Dr. Iris Thorne will be here at 4 this afternoon to review your case. He's the best nephrologist in the state." Grace stared at him. This man who looked like he could kill with his bare hands, who probably had. She nodded mutely. Dante stood, finally looked at Emma. The air between them crackled with something Emma couldn't name. Tension, recognition, something that made her skin feel too tight. "You did all this in 4 hours?" Emma asked. "I don't do half measures, Miss Sullivan. If you're under my roof, your problems are my problems, and I solve problems quickly." He paused, his jaw tightened. Your job is to keep my mother alive. She's stubborn, refuses medication, thinks she's invincible. If she falls again, if she misses a dose, you answer to me. Emma lifted her chin, met his dark stare without flinching. I can handle it. We'll see. He turned to Grace again. This time he spoke in Italian. Benvenuta. Questa è casa tua ora. Welcome, this is your home now. Grace looked confused. Emma translated automatically. He said, welcome. This is your home now. Dante's head snapped toward Emma, a sharp, assessing look. Your father taught you well. Michael spoke perfect Italian, better than most native speakers. He never said why, Emma replied, just that it was important. It was. Isabella appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a shawl, leaning on her cane. She smiled at Emma. Your father kept our books for 15 years. La lingua dei segreti, the language of secrets. Emma felt ice in her stomach. Her father had worked for the Romanos, not just as some random accountant, but for them, for 15 years. And she'd never known. What else hadn't she known? The East Wing was bigger than their entire apartment building. Grace's room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that probably bloomed spectacular colors in spring. Now they were bare, sleeping under December's gray blanket. The medical equipment was already set up. Top-of-the-line dialysis machine, hospital bed that could be adjusted with a remote, monitors, medications, everything Grace needed and more. Carmen was there, the waitress from the gala. Emma almost didn't recognize her in clean scrubs, hair pulled back professionally. Carmen? The woman smiled. Mrs. Romano offered me a position, day nurse for Grace. The pay is 3 times what I made catering, and I can bring my kids to work. They have a whole staff quarters section with the school and everything. She looked at Grace with professional assessment. Let's get you settled, honey. I'm going to take good care of you. As Carmen wheeled Grace away to get her situated, Emma stood in the hallway feeling unmoored. Adrift. 24 hours ago, she'd been counting pennies for subway fare. Now she was in a mansion that probably cost more than the GDP of a small country. Miss Sullivan, Richard Castellano appeared at her elbow. She hadn't heard him approach. Let me show you to your quarters. Her room was down the hall from Isabella's. Spacious but not ostentatious. A 4-poster bed, an actual closet you could walk into, a bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Uniforms are in the closet, business casual for day, more formal attire for dinners and events. Mrs. Romano dines at 7 every evening. You'll join her. Her medications are on a strict schedule. The list is on your phone. He handed her an iPhone. Latest model, still in the box. Your old number has been transferred. Emergency contacts are programmed. Mr. Romano's direct line is number 1. If anything happens, you call him first. Emma looked at the phone, at the room, at the window overlooking grounds that stretched to the horizon. This is too much. Well, this is the Romano way, Miss Sullivan. We take care of our own, and you, whether you know it or not, are family now. He left her alone. Emma sat on the bed, felt the mattress. Memory foam. Probably cost thousands. She pulled out her father's watch, wound it, listened to the tick. Dad, she whispered to the empty room, what did you get me into? The watch had no answers. It never did. At 4 p.m. sharp, Dr. Thorne arrived. Emma watched from the doorway as he examined Grace with the kind of attention she'd never seen from the overworked doctors at their city clinic. He took his time, asked questions, actually listened to the answers. After an hour, he found Emma in the hallway. Your sister is severely malnourished. The dialysis she's been receiving is outdated, inefficient. I'm surprised she's lasted this long, frankly. She's a fighter. Can you help her? Can I help her? He smiled. Miss Sullivan, with the resources Mr. Romano has made available, I can do more than help. I can give her a life. We'll start with nutritional therapy, better dialysis schedule, and I'm putting her on the transplant list. With the Romano Foundation connections, we can move her up significantly. Emma felt tears burn her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank Mr. Romano. He was very clear. Whatever Grace needs, cost is irrelevant. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma watched her sister transform. Color returned to her skin. She gained weight, started smiling again, started talking about maybe going back to school, maybe becoming a doctor herself someday. And Emma learned what her job actually entailed. Isabella Romano was a force of nature trapped in an aging body. She hated being reminded of her limitations, hated being treated like she was fragile. Emma's job was to keep her alive despite her best efforts to the contrary. Time for your medication, Isabella. I feel fine. The doctor said, doctors are pessimists. This conversation happened 3 times a day, every day. Emma learned to be firm without being harsh, learned to anticipate Isabella's tricks, the pills hidden in flower pots, the espresso smuggled from the kitchen despite her heart condition, the attempts to take walks without her cane. After a week, Isabella stopped fighting quite so hard. After 2 weeks, she started talking during their medication sessions, telling stories about the old days, about her first husband who died young, her second husband, Antonio, Dante's father, about building an empire from nothing. You are tough, Bambina, Isabella said one afternoon. Good, Dante needs someone tough. The women he dates, actresses, models, empty heads, empty hearts, like that Victoria girl. I'm not dating your son, Emma reminded her. I'm your assistant. Per ora. For now, Isabella winked. Emma ignored the flutter in her stomach. Dante Romano was dangerous. Criminal. Everything she should stay away from. The fact that she found herself listening for his footsteps in the hallway, disappointed when days passed without seeing him, meant nothing. Meant nothing at all. Dante was a ghost in his own house. He left before dawn, returned long after dark. When he was home, the atmosphere changed. Staff moved quieter. Guards looked sharper. The air itself seemed to thicken with tension. Emma saw him in passing. Hallways, security monitors, brief glimpses that left her pulse racing, until the night she couldn't sleep and went downstairs for warm milk. It was 2 in the morning. The mansion was dark and silent. Emma padded down the hallway in borrowed pajamas, bare feet on cold marble. She turned the corner into the industrial-sized kitchen and froze. Dante was there, sitting at the kitchen island, a bottle of whiskey open in front of him, half-empty glass in his hand, and he was shirtless. Emma's breath caught. She'd seen hints of his tattoos before, the thorns wrapping his forearms. But this was different. His back was a roadmap of violence. Scars crisscrossed his skin, knife slashes, bullet wounds, burns, each mark a story, each story probably ending in death. His or someone else's. She must have made a sound because he spoke without turning. Don't run away. I can hear your heartbeat from here, Emma. She hesitated. Every instinct screamed to leave, to run, but something stronger than fear pulled her forward. She walked slowly into the kitchen. I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted milk. Dante swiveled on the stool, and Emma saw that his chest was just as scarred as his back. But what caught her attention was the fresh bruise on his ribs, purpling and ugly. Recent. Rough day at the office? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Dante huffed. It might have been a laugh. Hostile takeover. Negotiations broke down. Does the other guy look worse? The other guy isn't breathing. The silence stretched. It should have been terrifying, but Emma felt pulled toward him like gravity. He looked exhausted. Not just tired, but soul-weary, carrying weight that would crush most men. You're bleeding. She pointed to a cut on his bicep. It's nothing. Emma grabbed the first aid kit from the cabinet Isabella had shown her, walked back to Dante. Sit still. I don't. Sit still. She stepped between his knees, poured antiseptic on a cotton pad. He watched her with dark, unreadable eyes. This will sting. I don't feel sting. She dabbed the cut. He didn't flinch. His muscles were rock hard under her fingers. Heat radiated off him like a furnace. Being this close felt dangerous, like standing at the edge of a cliff. Why did you really take us in? Emma asked softly. It wasn't just because I helped your mother. Dante looked down at her. His hand moved, hovered near her waist, then gripped the edge of the stool instead. You're right. I'm not charitable. I'm possessive. What does that mean? It means in my world, loyalty is the rarest currency. You showed loyalty to a stranger who had nothing to offer you. That makes you rare, and I collect rare things. Mo, is that all I am? A collectible? Dante leaned in. His face was inches from hers. She could smell whiskey and danger and something uniquely him. No, you're a liability, because looking at you makes me want to burn the world down just to keep you warm, and I can't afford that distraction. Emma's breath hitched. Dante abruptly stood, backing away from her. The moment shattered like glass. Go to bed, Emma. Lock your door. He grabbed the whiskey bottle and stormed out, left her standing in the kitchen, heart pounding, world tilted on its axis. She knew then, knew with terrible certainty. She was in danger. Not from Dante's enemies, but from Dante himself. from the way he made her feel, from the pull between them that defied logic and self-preservation. She was falling, and the landing was going to destroy her. 2 days later, Isabella announced she was attending the opening of Il Cielo, a new Italian restaurant in Manhattan. "It's owned by the family," Isabella insisted. "I must make an appearance, and you, Kara, are coming with me." "I don't think Dante would like that," Emma said. "Dante is not the boss of me." Isabella's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Besides, he'll be there. We'll be safe." A dress appeared in Emma's room, emerald silk that hugged every curve and left her back exposed. Designer, probably cost more than Emma used to make in 6 months. Carmen helped her get ready, did her hair in elegant waves, applied makeup that made Emma's green eyes look almost otherworldly. "Girl," Carmen breathed, "you look like a princess." Emma stared at herself in the mirror, barely recognized the woman looking back. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up." "You look like a queen. Trust me." Emma tucked the faded Polaroid of her father into her clutch. For luck, for memory, for the reminder of who she really was beneath the silken makeup. A Sullivan from Queens. Not some mafia princess. She descended the grand staircase. Dante was waiting in the foyer, tuxedo, Rolex on his wrist. He was checking his phone and didn't look up until she was halfway down. Then he looked up. Time seemed to slow. His eyes tracked up her body, lingered on the curves the dress emphasized, reached her face, and his mask cracked. Just for a second. Pure hunger, vulnerability, want. Then it slammed back into place. His jaw clenched. "Put a coat on." "It's 70 degrees. "I don't care. You're drawing attention." Isabella appeared, linking her arm through Emma's. "Lei è bellissima. Lasciala brillare." "She's beautiful. Let her shine." Dante looked like he wanted to argue. Finally just growled, "Fine, but you stay next to me at all times." The limo ride was torture. Dante sat across from Emma and Isabella, typing furiously on his phone. But every time Emma looked out the window, she caught his reflection watching her. And every time he looked at her, she was studying the Manhattan skyline. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Il Cielo was spectacular. Glass walls overlooking the city. Candlelight, the elite of New York mingling. Politicians, judges, men in expensive suits who looked like they ate souls for breakfast. Dante led them to a VIP booth positioned so he could see every entrance. Sat Emma next to him, close enough that she could feel his body heat, his presence like gravity pulling her in. He leaned close, whispered in her ear, "Don't talk to anyone, don't accept drinks, don't go to the bathroom alone. I thought we were safe here." His eyes scanned the room, never stopping, always calculating threats. "You are never safe when you're with me." The dinner started well. Excellent food, good wine, Isabella holding court with old friends, Emma staying quiet, observing, learning the strange social dynamics of this world. Then Marcus DeLuca arrived. He was 42. Greasy hair slicked back with too much gel. $10,000 suit worn badly. Gold Rolex that screamed new money. He had the look of a man who'd clawed his way up from nothing and was terrified everyone could still see the dirt under his nails. He walked over to their table without invitation. Without permission, stood there grinning like a wolf who'd found unguarded sheep. Isabella, looking ancient as ever. Isabella's voice could have cut glass. "Marcus, I see you haven't been indicted yet. Slow year for the FBI." Marcus laughed. Too loud, too long. His eyes drifted to Emma, lingered in a way that made her skin crawl. "And who's this? New mistress, Dante? You usually go for plastic blondes. This one looks natural. Irish, right? I like redheads." Emma felt Dante go rigid beside her, saw his hands slowly close around the steak knife, knuckles turning white. "Walk away, Marcus." Dante's voice was dead calm, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "Can I introduce myself?" Marcus reached out, extending his hand toward Emma's bare shoulder. Emma saw it happening in slow motion. Saw the threat, saw what would happen next. Dante moved faster than should have been possible for a man his size. The steak knife slammed into the table between Marcus's fingers, buried half an inch deep in expensive wood. The sound echoed through the restaurant. "Touch her, you lose the hand." The restaurant went silent. Every conversation died. Every eye turned toward their table. Marcus pulled his hand back, his face flushed red with rage and humiliation. "You're crazy, Romano. Starting a war over a waitress?" He looked at Emma, sneered. "You know who you are, sweetheart? The charity case. The Irish trash-playing princess. Tell me, how much is he paying you to warm his bed? Or is it free because you're desperate? Emma felt rage bloom in her chest, hot and righteous. She stood slowly, picked up her glass of red wine, and looked Marcus DeLuca dead in the eye. He pays me for my loyalty. Something you clearly can't buy, Mr. DeLuca. Judging by the way your own men are looking at you with disgust, I'd say loyalty is something you desperately need. But here's the truth. Money can't buy class, can't buy respect, and it certainly can't buy the one thing you'll never have. A reason to look at yourself in the mirror without shame. She threw the wine in his face. Red liquid dripped down his white shirt, stained the expensive fabric, made him look like he'd been bleeding. Marcus roared, lunged for her. Dante exploded from his seat, caught Marcus by the throat, lifted him off the ground, slammed him onto the adjacent table. Dishes shattered. Women screamed. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Dante had a gun out. Barrel pressed to Marcus's forehead. Give me a reason. Please, give me a reason. Both sides were armed now. Dante's men, Marcus's men. Standoff. Mexican standoff with Italian mobsters. Isabella calmly sipped her water. Non qui, Dante. Il risotto è eccellente. Not here. The risotto is excellent. Dante leaned close to Marcus's ear, whispered something Emma couldn't hear. Something that made Marcus's face go gray. Then he dropped him. Marcus scrambled up, wine-soaked, humiliated. He pointed a shaking finger at Emma. She's dead. Tonight. He stormed out. His men followed. Dante grabbed Emma's hand. We're leaving. Now. He dragged her through the kitchen. Emma's heels clicked on tile. Dante's grip was iron. He pushed through the back door into an alley behind the restaurant. Cold air hit them. Emma yanked her hand free. You're hurting me. Dante spun, pinned her against the brick wall, not hurting her but trapping her, his body pressing hers into the bricks. Are you insane? You threw wine at Marcus DeLuca. Do you have a death wish? He insulted you. He insulted me. I wasn't going to let him talk to us like that. These aren't rude customers at a diner, Emma. These are killers. He would have put a bullet in your brain without blinking. I felt safe, Emma's voice broke. I felt safe because you were there. I knew you wouldn't let him hurt me. Dante stared at her, breathing hard, pupils dilated. You trust me? Yes. You shouldn't. Why, because you're a monster? Emma reached up, touched the scar through his eyebrow. I don't see a monster. I see a man who defended his family. Dante's eyes closed, his forehead dropped to hers. He was shaking. You're making me weak, Emma. You make me want to be a man I can't be. Maybe you don't have to be the Reaper all the time. Dante opened his eyes. The violence was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. If I kiss you now, I won't be able to stop. And if I don't stop, I will ruin you. I will drag you into this darkness, and you'll never get out. Emma whispered. I'm already in the dark. Maybe I want to be there with you. Dante groaned, a sound of defeat and desire. He cupped her face in his hands and crashed his lips onto hers. The kiss was desperate, possessive. 7 years of loneliness and violence in control shattering in the space between their mouths. Emma wrapped her arms around his neck, pulled him closer, tasted whiskey and danger and want. For a moment, the alley disappeared. The guns, the threats, the impossible situation. There was only this, only them, only the fire burning between them hot enough to consume the world. Then tires screeched. An SUV careened around the corner. Windows rolled down. Automatic weapons appeared. Time seemed to stop. Dante's instincts took over. He didn't think, just moved, threw Emma down, covered her body with his. The world exploded. Gunfire, rapid, deafening, bullets chewing up the brick wall where they'd been standing a second ago. Debris rained down. The SUV's engine roared. Then silence. Dante! Emma's voice was raw with terror. She felt something warm and wet soaking through her dress. Dante rolled off her, landed on his back on the dirty pavement, looked up at the stars. His breath came in shallow gasps. Are you okay? His voice was weak. Emma scrambled to him, saw his chest, the white shirt turning crimson. 2 bullets. He'd taken 2 bullets meant for her. Oh my God! Emma screamed. Oh my God! Dante! He reached up. Bloody hand touched her cheek, left a red smear. I told you I'm dangerous to be around. His eyes rolled back. Hand fell limp. Emma screamed into the night. Help! Somebody help! Black SUVs appeared. Marco, guards, shouting in Italian. Someone pulled Emma away. She fought them, clawed, screamed, watched them load Dante into a vehicle. Watched it race away. Sirens in the distance. She looked down. Her emerald dress was crimson, soaked with blood. Dante's blood. He'd taken bullets for her. The Reaper. The man who feared nothing had finally found something to fear. Losing her. And Emma realized with terrible clarity that she loved him. Loved this dangerous, violent, impossible man. And he might die before she could tell him. The world tilted. Emma's knees gave out. Strong hands caught her. Marco's voice in her ear. "Come, Miss Sullivan, we go to him now." They loaded her into another SUV, raced through Manhattan toward Queens. Toward a nondescript building that looked like a veterinary clinic, but housed the best trauma surgeons money could buy. Emma sat in the back seat, covered in blood, shaking. Grace's words echoed in her head. "You love him." She did. God help her. She loved Dante Romano. And he might die in surgery while she sat here useless, unable to help, unable to do anything but wait and pray and hope that the universe was kinder than it had been 7 years ago when it took her father. The SUV screeched to a stop. Emma was pulled from the vehicle, into the building, down white hallways that smelled like antiseptic and fear, into a waiting room where Isabella already sat, composed, statue still. But her eyes held a mother's ultimate agony. Emma collapsed into a chair, waited, and prayed to a God she'd stopped believing in 7 years ago. "Please, not again. Don't take another person I love. Not again, not like this." Dante Romano took 2 bullets meant for Emma Sullivan. The man who feared nothing finally found something to fear. Losing the woman who reminded him why he fights. But as Dante lies in surgery fighting for his life, Emma is about to discover the truth that will change everything. Her father's death, the document, and the enemy who's been hiding in plain sight for 7 years. In exactly 9 hours, Emma will face a choice. Let the man who killed her father walk free, or become the very thing she swore she'd never be. The trauma center in Queens was designed to look forgettable. Brick building, faded sign, could have been a warehouse or a storage facility. Nothing to draw attention. Inside was different. State-of-the-art operating rooms, equipment that most hospitals couldn't afford, doctors who knew better than to ask questions and were paid enough to forget faces. Emma sat in the waiting room, still covered in Dante's blood. The emerald dress now looked black in places where the blood had dried. Her hands were stained crimson. She couldn't stop looking at them. Couldn't stop seeing Dante's eyes rolling back, his hand falling limp. Isabella sat across from her, perfectly still, rosary beads moving through her fingers, lips moving in silent prayer. She'd been there for hours, hadn't spoken, hadn't cried, just prayed. The clock on the wall said 11:47 p.m. Emma checked her father's watch. It had stopped at 11:47 p.m. 7 years ago, the night Michael Sullivan died. 7 years to the minute. "Dad," Emma whispered. "Not again. Please, not again." The surgery was in its 9th hour. No updates, no news. Just the terrible silence of waiting. Then the door burst open. Men flooded in. Romano captains, soldiers, the room filled with testosterone and barely contained violence. They wore suits but moved like warriors. Eyes hard, jaws clenched, ready for war. Leading them was a man Emma hadn't met. Tony Salvatore, 50 years old, built like a fire hydrant. Permanent scowl. He'd been Dante's underboss for 20 years. Loyal, ruthless, and deeply suspicious of outsiders. His eyes found Emma, raked over her blood-soaked dress, his lip curled. "What happened?" His voice was pure Brooklyn, rough as concrete. "Where was the security gap?" Emma opened her mouth. Tony cut her off. "How did DeLuca's men know the exit route? How did they know exactly when you'd be in that alley?" He stepped closer, looming. Dante took 2 slugs for a waitress. A fucking waitress. And now he's in there fighting for his life. "Tony," Isabella's voice cut through the room. Not loud, but everyone froze. "Watch your mouth. You're speaking to the woman my son took a bullet for." That buys her respect. "With all due respect, Donna Isabella, Dante is on an operating table because of her. We're vulnerable. The wolves know the lion is down. We need to hit DeLuca tonight. Burn his whole operation to the ground." The room murmured agreement. Emma could feel it. The hunger for blood, for revenge, for violence that would make them feel less powerless. She stood, still covered in Dante's blood. It gave her a strange authority, like she'd been baptized in violence and emerged something different. "No, Aisha." The room went silent. Tony looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Excuse me? Dante isn't dead. He's still the Don. Until he wakes up, nobody starts an all-out war without proof." Tony laughed, bitter, mocking. Proof? DeLuca threatened him to his face 10 minutes before the shooting. Exactly. Emma's voice was steady, calm. Her mind was clicking through the pieces. Too obvious. DeLuca is loud, stupid, but he's not suicidal. Attacking Dante right after publicly threatening him makes him the obvious suspect. Too obvious. She looked around the room, at the hardened criminals, the killers. Whoever did this knew our exact exit route, knew exactly when we'd be in that alley. That wasn't DeLuca getting lucky. That was an inside job. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. To suggest a traitor in the Romano inner circle was signing your own death warrant. Tony stepped into her space, invaded it, used his size to intimidate. You accusing my men of disloyalty, little girl? Emma didn't back down. I'm telling you that if you go after DeLuca tonight, the real traitor laughs while you waste ammo on the wrong target. Isabella stood, moved to Emma's side. She's right, Tony. My son is methodical. He'd want truth before painting streets red. We wait. Lock down territory. Find the leak. Tony's face was red, veins popping in his neck. But you didn't argue with Isabella Romano. Not if you wanted to keep breathing. Fine, he spat. We lock down. But if Dante dies, this is on you, girl. He stormed out. Half the men followed. The others positioned themselves around the waiting room. Guards, watching Emma like she might bolt. Or like she might be the threat herself. Emma sat back down, started shaking, adrenaline crash hitting hard. What had she just done? Accused someone in the family of betrayal. Put a target on her own back. But the math didn't lie. The ambush was too perfect. Someone had given up their location. The question was who? Hours passed. Dawn light crept through the windows, gray and cold. December morning in New York. Carmen arrived with Grace. Her sister looked better, color in her cheeks. But her eyes were red from crying. Grace rolled her wheelchair over, grabbed Emma's bloody hands. Is he going to die? I don't know. Emma's voice broke. I don't know anything anymore. You love him. It wasn't a question. Emma nodded, tears finally coming. I barely know him, Grace, but yeah, I love him, and he might die before I can tell him. Grace squeezed her hands. Then you make sure whoever did this pays. You fight, like Dad would have fought. I don't know how. Grace reached into her bag, pulled out a USB drive. I found this, in the boxes we brought from the apartment. It was taped under Dad's desk drawer. I plugged it in. It's Dad's voice, recorded the night he died. Emma's blood went cold. What? He knew, Emma. He knew they were coming for him. Emma took the USB drive, hands shaking, went to the nurse's station, borrowed a laptop, sat in the corner, plugged it in, audio file, dated December 18th, 2017, 9:30 p.m. 2 hours before her father died. Emma hit play and heard her father's voice for the first time in 7 years. Emma, Grace, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry, girls. Emma pressed her hand to her mouth, tried not to sob, listened. Her father explained everything. 15 years as the Romano accountant, discovering Richard Castellano's embezzlement, $340 million stolen through shell companies. The meeting tonight with Isabella and Antonio to hand over evidence. The threatening phone call. Richard's voice saying accidents happen. Saying Emma and Grace were so young, shame if something happened to them. I'm hiding the evidence. Safety deposit box 1247, Astoria Federal Bank. Key is in my watch. The watch I'll be wearing when I die. Emma clutched her father's watch. The Timex in her pocket. Michael Sullivan's voice continued. Told them to trust the Romanos, trust Isabella. If Dante was anything like his father, Antonio, he was a man of honor. To be strong, be smart, to remember. La verità vi renderà liberi. The truth will set you free. I love you both more than life itself. Your mother would be so proud. Tagra agamduit godeo. I love you forever. The recording ended. Emma sat in the silence, tears streaming down her face. Her father had known, had walked into that meeting knowing he might die. To protect them, to protect the Romanos, to do the right thing. And Richard Castellano had killed him for it. Richard, the family attorney, the consigliere, the man who'd brought Emma to the estate, who smiled kindly, who'd been searching for that evidence for 7 years. Emma pulled out her father's watch, the Timex that had stopped at 11:47. With shaking hands, she unscrewed the back casing, something she'd never done before. Never wanted to disturb the one thing she had left of him. Inside, taped carefully, was a tiny key, and wrapped around it, a piece of paper. Her father's handwriting. Box 1247. The truth will set you free. I love you. Protect your sister. Trust Dante. He's a good man underneath. Dad. Emma pocketed the key. Her mind was racing. Richard had killed her father, set up tonight's ambush, was probably planning to finish what he started as soon as Dante was vulnerable. She needed proof, something concrete, something that would make the family believe her over their trusted attorney. She thought about the phone, Dante's phone. It would be in his effects bag, the things they'd removed before surgery. Emma went to the nurse's station. I need Mr. Romano's personal effects. The nurse hesitated. I'm not sure. I'm his fiancée. The lie came easily. I need his phone. There are calls I have to make. The nurse relented, brought out a plastic bag, Dante's suit, his shoes, his phone, Rolex, wallet, all stained with blood. Emma took the phone. It was locked. Of course it was. She tried the obvious. Antonio's death date? Wrong. Isabella's birthday? Wrong. What would Dante use? What mattered to him enough to memorize? To use as a code to his entire empire? Emma's fingers moved on instinct. Typed in December 18th, 2024. The day they met. The phone unlocked. Emma's heart stopped. He'd used the day he met her as the password to everything, to his business, his secrets, his life. What did that mean? She pushed the thought away. Focused. Went to his secure messaging app, scrolled to the night of the shooting, found messages from around 8:15 p.m. during dinner. There. A message. Restaurant location. Table number. Predetermined emergency exit route. North Alley. Recipient labeled Asset 4. But the message hadn't come from Dante's phone. It had been forwarded to his phone. As an FYI, from Richard Castellano. Richard had shared their security details. Had set them up. Had tried to have Dante killed. Emma's hands shook. She had proof. She had the key to her father's evidence. She had everything. But who would believe her? Richard had been with the family for 30 years. She'd been here 2 weeks. The door to the surgical wing opened. A doctor emerged. Tired. Blood on his scrubs. The room went silent. Mrs. Romano? Isabella stood, moved with the stiffness of someone bracing for the worst news of their life. Your son is stable. The surgery was successful. We removed both bullets. One nicked his lung. The other lodged near his spine. But we got them both. He'll need extensive recovery. But he's going to live. The room exhaled, relief so profound it was almost painful. Isabella swayed. Emma caught her, held her while the old woman finally allowed herself to cry. Can I see him? Isabella asked. He's in recovery, medically induced coma for the next 72 hours. Let his body heal. But yes, you can sit with him. They were led to a private room. Dante looked smaller somehow, pale. Tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped and hummed. The mighty Reaper reduced to this. Vulnerable. Human. Emma sat beside his bed, took his hand. It was warm. Still alive. Still here. You idiot, she whispered. You scared me to death. 3 days passed. Emma didn't leave. Refused to. She slept in the chair beside Dante's bed. Learned the rhythm of the ventilator breathing for him. Watched the monitors like they held the secrets of the universe. On the third night, sitting in the dim light of machines, Emma took his limp hand. You have to wake up. You promised me we'd talk again. You promised me I wasn't safe with you. Prove it. Wake up and be dangerous again. Because I don't know how to do this without you. She laid her head on the mattress near his hand. Let herself cry, admitted the truth she'd been avoiding. I love you, Dante Romano. I love you, and you don't even know. And if you die, I swear I will find Richard Castellano and kill him myself, with my bare hands if I have to, because he took my father. And I won't let him take you too. The monitors beeped steadily. Dante didn't move, didn't respond, but Emma could have sworn his fingers twitched against hers. On the fourth day, Richard Castellano visited. It was 3 a.m. Emma was dozing in her chair when the door opened. She jerked awake, saw Richard in his expensive suit, carrying lilies, looking concerned and kind, and so utterly trustworthy. Emma's blood turned to ice. Emma, my dear? His voice was smooth, practiced. How is he? Stable. Emma placed her hand over Dante's phone. Still had it, hidden beneath a blanket. What are you doing here, Richard? It's 3 a.m. I'm the family attorney. I need to ensure everything is in order. In case, he paused. In case the worst happens. He stepped closer to the bed, looked down at Dante. And for just a second, his mask slipped. Emma saw something cold, calculating, almost like satisfaction. He's going to wake up, Emma said firmly. We all hope so. Richard pulled out a business card, set it on the table next to the lilies. If you need anything, call me. The double meaning was clear. You've caused enough trouble. Get out of the way. After he left, Emma sat in the dark, thinking, planning. She called Isabella. I know who tried to kill Dante. Word spread carefully. Through staff, Richard had compromised. A message designed to lure him out. Dante was waking up, showing signs of consciousness. Family only visit at 4 a.m. Isabella arrived at 3:45. She positioned herself in the corner, hidden in shadows. Emma stayed by the window. Phone out, recording app open. At 4:12 a.m., the door opened. Richard slipped in, wearing scrubs, calm, professional. He locked the door behind him, crossed to Dante's bed, reached into his pocket, pulled out a syringe. Emma's heart pounded. She stayed hidden, watching, waiting. Richard reached for Dante's IV line, started to inject the syringe, whispered as he worked. I'm sorry, Dante. You were like a son to me, but you chose war for a girl, a Sullivan girl. Some lessons are taught in blood. Emma stepped from the shadows. She's not just a girl. Richard spun, saw the phone recording. His face went white, then red, the mask cracking completely. Emma, you don't understand the pressure, the debts. DeLuca had evidence? He was going to expose me. So you killed my father. Your father was stealing. He was going to destroy everything. He was trying to save the family from you. Emma's voice was steel. And you had him murdered. Richard pulled a gun, small, easily concealed, pointed it at Emma. Give me that phone. No. I will kill you, just like I killed Michael Sullivan, just like I'm going to kill Dante. Then shoot me. Emma lifted her chin. But you'll never find the safety deposit box without the key, and you'll die knowing you lost to a waitress. Richard's finger moved toward the trigger, and then a hand shot out from the bed, grabbed Richard's wrist, crushed it. The gun clattered to the floor. Dante's eyes opened. Clear, dark, furious, alive. I was never asleep, Richard. His voice was rough but strong. I was waiting. Richard collapsed, begging, promising everything. Names, accounts, evidence against everyone. Anything to live. Dante looked at Emma. The key, the evidence. Emma handed it over. Handed over the USB drive. Handed over her father's last message. Dante listened to 30 seconds of Michael Sullivan's voice. His jaw clenched. Then he looked at Richard. Two options, FBI and witness protection, or my way. He picked up the fallen gun. Choose. FBI, Richard gasped. I'll testify. I'll give you everything. Good. Dante pressed a button. Guards entered. Because if you'd chosen my way, you'd already be dead. They took Richard away. The door closed. Isabella emerged from the corner, went to her son, kissed his forehead, then quietly left mother and son and the woman who'd saved them both alone. Dante tried to sit up. Stitches pulled. Blood seeped. Emma pushed him back down. You idiot. You could have died. I chose war for you. His voice was weak but certain. I'll choose you every time. Why? Emma was crying now. Why risk everything? Dante touched her face, left a smear of blood. Because 7 years ago I promised your father I'd protect his daughters. 3 days ago I realized I loved you, and I'd burn this city down before I let anyone hurt you. Emma stared at him. You love me? Probably shouldn't say that while bleeding. Bad timing. Emma laughed, cried. The worst. But I mean it. Ti amo. Emma Sullivan. Doctors rushed in, pushed Emma aside. Dante grabbed her hand as they worked. Don't you dare die on me, Emma said. Wouldn't dream of it. His eyes were already closing. Anesthesia kicking in. We have a future to build. Recovery took months. Physical therapy, pain, frustration. But Emma was there, every day, reading to him, arguing with him, making him laugh when he wanted to give up. Grace's health improved dramatically. She started classes at Columbia, pre-med, wanted to be a nephrologist. Help people like Carmen had helped her. The FBI took Richard's testimony, brought down 3 crime families. Marcus DeLuca was found dead in a warehouse. Officially unsolved. Unofficially, everyone knew. And slowly, carefully, Dante started transitioning the Romano businesses toward legitimacy. It would take years, maybe decades, but Emma had planted a seed, shown him another way. 6 months later, they returned to the St. Regis. Same ballroom, same charity gala. But everything was different. Emma descended the grand staircase in a midnight blue gown. Elegant, understated. She wasn't playing anymore. Wasn't pretending. Dante met her at the bottom. Still had a slight limp from the spinal injury. Probably always would. But he was alive. Healing. Owing. His arm was in a sling, but his eyes were clear. They entered together, the room parted. Not from mockery, from respect, from fear, from the knowledge that Emma Sullivan had brought the Reaper to his knees and made him better for it. That's Emma Sullivan, Dante Romano's fiancée. She runs the Romano Foundation now. They say she's the only one who can control him. Emma stopped beside Victoria Ashford. The former influencer looked broken. 50,000 followers left. Her father's company bankrupt. Working as an event coordinator. The irony was almost painful. Careful with your drink, Victoria. Emma's voice was kind, not cruel. The staff works very hard, Victoria nodded, eyes down, terrified. Emma leaned close, whispered, 7 years ago you taught me that how you treat people when they can't help you shows who you really are. Thank you for the lesson. She walked away, found Dante. They danced to soft music while the city watched through glass walls. Do you regret anything? Emma asked. Only that it took 7 years to find you. Was I worth the wait? Dante smiled, kissed her forehead, whispered in terrible Irish accent, Tagra agam duit godeo. I love you forever. Emma laughed. Your accent is awful. Then you'll have to teach me. We have a lifetime. 1 year later, Emma stood in a cemetery in Queens, Dante beside her, Grace healthy and thriving, Isabella leaning on her cane but smiling. Michael Sullivan's grave had a new marker, paid for by the Romano Foundation. It read, Beloved Father, Protector, Hero, ante abion lidir, bion se chelmar. He who is strong is wise. We did it, Dad, Emma said. We found the truth, got justice, and found family. Grace knelt, placed flowers. I'm going to be a doctor because of you, because you taught me suffering can become purpose. Isabella crossed herself. Riposa in pace, vecchio amico. Rest in peace, old friend. Dante stood at attention, military salute. Your daughters are safe. Your legacy lives. You have my word, Michael, always. Back at the Romano estate, Emma worked at her desk in the foundation office. Grace visited between classes, brought textbooks, talked about residency applications. Dante entered, kissed Emma's forehead. How are you feeling? Emma took his hand, placed it on her stomach, small but noticeable curve. Tired, happy, nervous about raising a Romano Sullivan, half Irish, half Italian, 100% trouble. Dante's eyes widened, dropped to his knees, pressed his forehead to her belly. A baby? You're going to be a father. He pulled out a small box from his pocket. Inside was a silver Timex watch, identical to Michael's. Inscription on the back read, For baby Romano Sullivan. So they know their grandfather's time. Emma cried, It's perfect. I had good examples. Antonio taught me strength. Your father taught me honor. You taught me love. What will you teach our child? To be strong like their grandfather Sullivan, loyal like their grandfather Romano, and kind like their mother, the bravest person I know. That evening, as they celebrated with family, the doorbell rang. Marco returned with an envelope, no return address, just for Emma. Inside was a photograph, young woman, maybe 25, red hair like Emma's, different features but similar eyes, standing outside Astoria Federal Bank. Note attached, handwritten. Emma, Michael Sullivan had secrets. One of them is me. I'm your half-sister. Our father protected me by keeping me hidden. But now dangerous people are asking questions. I need help, the kind only a Romano can give. Siobhan, as though Dante and Emma exchanged looks. Did you know? No, but if she's Michael's, she's family, and we protect family. Emma smiled, determined. Then let's go get our sister. They say karma has no deadline, but family is forever. It crosses bloodlines, heals wounds, builds empires. Emma Sullivan walked into a ballroom as a waitress. She walked out a queen. Not because she married a king, but because she chose kindness when the world chose cruelty. Because she saw the man behind the monster. Because she loved fiercely and fought harder. And that is how you change the world. One act of grace at a time, the waitress was gone. Long live the queen.